Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk ETC. I have an interesting guest with me, Cole Allen, and he is 15 years old. He's in high school, and surprisingly, he is an ETC miner. So he's been involved with blockchain technology. He's getting a head start in life, and I invited him on to talk about his mining experiences and also to share with us what his generation thinks about this tech and what they're doing with this tech. So welcome, Cole.
Yes, thank you for having me. Yeah, as he said, I'm 15 years old. I've been mining Ethereum in general now for a few years. I also have a bit of experience mining Bitcoin, but most of my experience is with mining Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. Most of my hardware and stuff that I run right now is AMD-based hardware. I am switching up a lot of stuff right now. There's a lot of changes going on in the network right now with Ethereum due to tons of stuff, which I guess we'll get into. So yeah.
Okay, very good. Now, I don't know how much you know about the story of the founder of Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, but he was doing a lot of stuff with blockchain technology as a teenager, and he was coming up with the ideas for what later became Ethereum. A lot of them are a good part of them as a teenager. So certainly that maybe that's will inspire you. You can never start too early, I guess. But how did you even hear about this technology, and how did you get involved with it?
Well, actually, it's a bit odd how I got involved. It was actually through YouTube originally, back in I don't know, 2016 probably was whenever I first my interest was a bit sparked in it off of a Linus Tech Tips video. This was way before he did any videos on cryptocurrency, but he mentioned in one of his videos when he was buying used hardware, if a part had been used for mining, or he had assumed it was. And that kind of sparked my interest in it, and I looked it up and I started looking into it, and I was like, okay. And by 2017, I was mining Bitcoin on most of my workstations. I have a lot of workstations I used for video editing and photography. So I was mining on those workstations, which most of them had AMD cards in them. And yeah, I was making a bit from it. I was very interested. But yeah, that's how I got into it.
Okay. Yeah, I had a student, so I'm a teacher, and he was involved with Bitcoin early, and he must have done some mining because he acquired some Bitcoins, and he would have made a lot of money if he held on to them. He ended up losing a lot of it in online poker. So were you one of those that had a lot of early Bitcoins that you wish you held on to?
Oh yes, definitely. Right now with the pumps we've had recently with Bitcoin and Ethereum, I've kind of beat myself up about it. Yeah, I have beat myself up about that a lot. That I have lost a lot with spending it prematurely based on the market.
Okay. Now, I didn't learn a lot about technology until I was much older. So, is it common now? Like in your high school, are there a lot of people that know about Bitcoin and even mining, like you are? Can you give us a sense of what your generation, how their familiarity with this tech?
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, if you go like into my high school or my old middle school, pretty much everybody you ask is gonna say, "Yeah, I know what Bitcoin is." They're definitely whenever the market went up back in late 2017, early 2018. Definitely in schools, you were hearing a lot about Bitcoin, people joking around with it, as you do in middle school and high school, and as far as people like knowing the technical side of things, it definitely was not as much. Now, the students at my school that were a bit more, I guess you could say, tech savvy, were experimenting around with things like NiceHash and trying to mine it on the computers. But the big limit as far as mining it is that you've got to have some very powerful hardware. You've got to have, good GPUs. You can't be mining this off your laptop anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So by the way, I just realized that I may have asked you an unfair question, because obviously you can't comment for your entire generation all over the planet, right? You could only,
right.
So what area of, I assume you're in America,
yes.
from a previous contact messages we had. Can you just share your city? You don't have to give your address, but maybe
I'm
just
over in the Triangle area, which is eastern United States on the East Coast. And it's definitely, like I said, it's definitely has its influence around here.
Now, what people aren't going to know I don't know what tri-state means. That could
over the Raleigh area. Raleigh is the capital of North Carolina, where I live, or in my state. So the Triangle is a very technology involved area, which includes the Raleigh area. So yeah.
Okay, and a lot of people get into blockchain technology for various reasons. Some of them political, some of them they have the libertarian political philosophy and anarcho-capitalist. You may or may not know what those mean, but
yes.
do you find that your peer group, the ones that you know about, is it just that the technology's cool, or do they ever have thoughts about the political implications of blockchain technology? What are your thoughts?
No, I think I don't think that's really with them. I think it's mainly just joking around, and the ones that are into it, are interested, they see it as a way to make money. It's very, very hard to get into it at this age, between regulations with the government that they have added on now since it kind of exploded, and then the difficulties with how expensive hardware is to get to mine it. Most of them, it's just a dream. You won't find many people like me at my age that are mining Bitcoin or even investing it, trading it, that have it.
Okay. Just a lot. The barrier of just having enough.
Yes, there is huge barriers.
Yeah. What about, is it anybody ever have thoughts? I mean, there's no reason you couldn't do this, right? Learn to program smart contracts, as they call them, create an application, and maybe even try to make some money off them. Anybody ever get that ambitious?
No, no one ever. I've not even gotten that ambitious. Most people, at least around here, no.
Okay. All right, but you do know. I mean, I don't have to tell you that we live in kind of strange times now, because anyone can make a mobile phone application, or now a blockchain application, and reach the whole world with it, which is kind of astounding. That wasn't always the case, even fairly recently. Okay, so now tell us about your mining. And I don't know, please forgive me, I don't know hardly anything about the practical side of mining. But why don't you kind of tell about your experiences and what you set up, your rig, and how all that's.
Okay. Well, it's definitely it's something that has evolved with me. I really, really kind of hit hard with mining actually after the huge explosion of Bitcoin. This was actually back when it was struggling and all the investors and whatnot had left, and it was kind of just ruined. It looked like. I started off not much. I started off with 7 RX 580s, which got at the time about $500 a month, if I'm thinking correctly. So it was not much. And of course, I was not paying power at that time. I worked out an agreement with my parents that eventually I would start to pay power whenever I got to a certain point, which power is one of the big issues with mining. Usually whenever if you start out like me with 8 cards, maybe, power won't be too big of an issue. But by the time you get up into 10, 12, 14 cards, you'll find very quickly that using your regular power from the wall, your 120 volt, 15 amp breakers, just does not work. You will flip the breaker. You get resistance on the lines. I've had regular outlets, like wall outlets, that I have melted
Wow.
Yeah, you get way too much resistance. It's not good. Do not mine on 15 amp breakers if you are taking up a lot of power. But as far as the mining side of things, one of the big disadvantages is definitely that there's a lot of instability with it. You run into a lot of issues with just having to babysit the mines, especially as a beginner. If you can get a few days of uptime, you're lucky. Um, I right now on my mines, I have gotten very lucky. I've gotten about 3 days now without any downtime on them. But if I'd make one change, I'll probably spend a day or two repairing them, just because they're so picky. But once you get all the quirks out of them, they're fairly nice.
So it's just, are you saying it's just in the beginning when you're getting all the bugs worked out that you have these issues, but once you've worked on it for a while, then it can go for a long time with a huge uptime? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, definitely. Once you've gained experience and you've figured out what works and what doesn't work, it definitely helps. Now, like something for me, I know a lot of people mine on Windows machines. Um, that brings a headache to things. I personally use a operating system that's based off Linux. It's called Hive OS. I have found that to work better than any of the other OSs dedicated for mining, and I've found that to work better than Windows as far as stability. Now, Windows for stability is horrible, in my opinion. I used it in the beginning when I started mining, and it was awful for stability.
Okay. Huh. So yeah, I'm old enough to remember when it was called Windows New Technology, and when that first came out way back in the late '90s, how it was even more unstable. But yeah. You mentioned a variant of Linux. What'd you call it? Hive, Hive?
Yes, Hive OS.
Okay. So
It
for
is.
people so people should look into that.
Yes, definitely. Like I said, it's been very nice for me, and you don't have to even run a hard drive on it. I, on most of my mines, run flash drives. Now, you'll hear from people that running a flash drive is a horrible idea if you're running a large mine. But I have not ran into any issues running flash drives on 14 card mines.
Okay. Oh, because once you load up the software in memory, it really doesn't
Right,
matter. Okay.
right.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm curious, you said sometimes your rigs will go for 3 days and then something will happen. I'm curious if it was fine for 3 days. Give us a sense of what is it like that typically can happen that after
Um,
3 days?
well, the first thing that will happen is graphics cards, like the consumer graphics cards, are usually meant for gaming. They are not meant to be run 24/7 full load. Um, so you will get crashes, and getting your clocks right. If you don't have your clocks right, they will eventually become unstable and crash. And then, like I said, also adjusting things. It seems like anytime you adjust something, it will throw something off of the mine. Um, why there's so many variables with a mine that it can be hard to tell exactly what the issue is. And then you've also got variables like you've got the risers. The risers will go bad. I've had just in the past month, I've had like 3 or 4 risers for the graphics cards go bad. And it's very hard to tell which card it is, which riser it is, and then getting it replaced. It can be quite a pain.
What is a riser? I'm not familiar with.
The risers are essentially what you use to remove the graphics cards from the motherboard, because usually the graphics cards will be plugged directly into the motherboard.
Okay.
But of course, this is extremely inefficient. You've got to have PCI 2.0, 3.0, or times 16 in order to do that. And motherboards usually only have like 4 of those max in a very high end board. So what risers take advantage of is the 1X, or like I usually use 1.0 slot, which is the very small slot in motherboards. And it simply plugs into that with a USB and basically turns into a times 16 slot after a little bit, which is a full-size graphics card slot, so that you have about a foot you can take the card away from the motherboard. So you can fit a ton more. And of course, you can have a lot more 1.0 slots, and a motherboard, then you can like times 16 or 3.0, etc. slots.
Okay. So I see. So the riser can get damaged, and maybe it's not plugged in, pushed in correctly.
Yes.
I see. Okay.
And they have capacitors and stuff that can fail. So
right. And so you said you're not paying the power bills, but then your parents were nice enough to pay did you know, like, did their electricity bill, power bill double, triple? Do you not kind of know what it was?
It definitely, all right. Online, there is a lot of charts that are very helpful where they will predict your power cost. You put in your power cost per kilowatt and the amount of power you take up from the mine, and it will go ahead and tell you, how much you'll take up. And I definitely was surprised. It did not raise as much as I was expecting it to, which was interesting to me. Although I am looking into, of course, paying them now because my operation is getting so large that I'm taking up quite a bit of power cost. Power cost definitely is it's a big thing. It takes profits, right. Huge profits from it.
Right. And so do you have friends that are also mining and you guys help each other? Or is this just a solo operation you did?
Some of my friends are interested in getting into it, but it's just so hard for people my age because between the money and having the knowledge of computers, because you've got to have a lot of knowledge with computers, or you'll probably end up selling off your cards and stuff if you were to get into it. And then, of course, dealing with parents, not knowing what it is and not being, leery of it. So really, it's just a solo thing. I have had a few friends that have offered to mine for me on their graphics cards. But besides that, it's pretty much just solo.
Okay, so then would you say you're quite exceptional then, in your knowledge?
I definitely am ahead of my time, and as far as my generation, I definitely am probably ahead of them with that.
Okay, so then I shouldn't get the idea that every teenager out there is
no.
That's a mining rig in their basement. Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. And so was it exciting, like when you first got a couple Ether and you were actually successful? Was that really cool?
Well, it was kind of mixed emotions. It definitely was really exciting to see that come into my wallet in the beginning. It was really exciting. And it was really exciting to see the cards show up originally on my doorstep. But yeah, I kind of had mixed emotions with it because turning the Ethereum into USD, fiat currency, is extremely hard at this age because you've got to be 18 or older to sign up for exchange accounts, which is just about the only way to exchange it to US currency. So really, unless your parents are willing to open an exchange account in their name, it's going to be hard for you to sell your earnings.
Right. If there was more, hypothetically, if there was more things people could buy online with Ether, right, then you wouldn't need, you could just, as a teenager, anybody could order something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'll share one of my secrets. One of the things that I do is there is websites where you can buy gift cards. What I have a bit of a process. I will buy eBay gift cards with my earnings. I will then use that to buy graphics cards. And then eventually I end up selling the graphics cards after about 6 months of mining. And then once I sell the cards, I will then get the money in, of course, US because I will sell them on eBay. And yeah, that's kind of how I get the payout.
Okay. And you're able to buy these gift cards with Ether somewhere?
Yes, there's a few websites. I mean, if you look up gift cards for Ethereum or Bitcoin, you'll see a lot. There's a few websites that do it. The website I use is just called eGifter.
Okay.
And I can use Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum Classic, Ethereum. I think that's all of them that they support.
Okay, well, that seems like it basically solved the issue then for teenagers that don't have bank accounts and credit cards.
Well, you run into some other snags there because, like, for my process of eBay, theoretically you've got to be 18 to have an eBay, but don't tell eBay I have an eBay account.
Okay.
Excuse me, PayPal.
Oh yeah. Okay, with PayPal, I could see that. So you just why don't you kind of just share for the people that don't know, like me, anything about mining? So you talked about Hive OS. What other software should other teenagers and other budding miners look into?
As far as the software side of things, there is not much. One of the things that you are going to want to look into if you're mining is modding the BIOSes of cards. For this, there is like a Polaris BIOS editor for most AMD cards, or at least RX cards. That is a big thing where you can basically modify the timings. So when clocks, like when the speeds of the card whenever they take effect. So modding is called the straps or
Okay.
streps, however you say it. Modifying those, basically that will allow the card to mine a lot faster. I've seen huge improvements on mining by modding BIOSes. Besides software to mod BIOSes, there's not much on the software side of things. Definitely a lot with the hardware, not so much of the software.
Okay. The as far as the client, the mining software to actually do the hashes, is that included with Hive OS?
Um,
Or is that something else you need to install and download?
Well, no, that's one of the good things that I love about HiveOS. It is very easy. Like on Windows, you would have to go to a website and like GitHub, and then you'd have to get it from there. But with HiveOS, pretty much every single miner that you're going to come across on the internet is already implemented into HiveOS, and you can simply put it in, and it has a GUI where you can throw in your pool information, and then you're off to the races.
Oh, okay. So the Hive OS is not something that like you're the only one that's using it. It's something that the smart miners know that this is a good tool.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I see. Okay, and that will have a lot of the work setup done for you. Okay,
Mhm.
all right. And so yeah, so very cool. So you're doing mining, and you were successful enough that you decided to continue doing it and take your earnings to buy more graphics cards. So you're expanding your operation. What's kind of your goal for the next year, 2 or 3, to just keep increasing the number of graphics cards?
Yes. Right now, of course, there has been a big kind of issue that's been thrown in with things, but originally my end of goal was to have 6,000 mega hashes a second on ETH hash, which at this rate seemed achievable at the rate I'm going at with earnings monthly. Um, but of course, getting up to that is going to take massive amounts of power. Um, that's one of my issues that I'm running into is power. I don't know how I'm going to power all those rigs whenever one 14 card rig, which takes up about 1,500 watts or 1.5 kilowatts. Um, of course, that's more than enough to max out your average breaker on your home. I've got modified wiring, modified breakers that I've all put in. Most people hire an electrician, which once again is another snag for miners doing it. Is that you're going to have to redo your electrical most likely. Um,
Okay, wow. And then how is the heat output? Is that an issue? How you
Um, yes, heat is a definitely an issue with the cards. You want to keep, or at least I shoot for keeping the heat between 60 and 55 degrees Celsius. Um, I shoot for keeping the heat around 60 to 55 degrees Celsius, which is a bit hot. I would prefer to keep it more like 50. Um, but ventilation, really just throw some box fans up and you should be fine.
Okay, but as far as heating up the house, that's I mean you
Yes, definitely. I don't mind inside of my house simply because of noise. It's ridiculous the amount of noise. But yes, the heat, as far as if you're mining in a house, that room's going to heat up a lot. If you're running 10 or so cards, you're probably going to get that room up to 80 degrees. Uh, no matter how much, as far as air cooling, ventilation you have, you're probably going to get it up to 80 degrees if you're mining in a house.
Okay.
I mine in a basement and I have it ventilated, exhaust fans exhausting out the heat.
All right. Now, what do you think about? There was talk about. I think it was Bitfury. Again, I don't follow mining that closely, but didn't somebody come up with an ASIC for ETH hash that was a lot faster? Did you ever think of getting one of those? I know they're hard to get.
Well, okay. I've kind of been back and forth on that. There's a few ASICs out right now that can mine ETH hash. I have thought about it. I've thought really hard about getting them. They are very expensive. That's one of the things. Very expensive to get. They definitely are a lot faster, but the main thing that prevents me from getting an ASIC for ETH hash is because if they implement these new algorithms that they're talking about implementing, the ASIC miners that mine ETH hash will be a huge paperweight, and I don't want to spend thousands of dollars on a paperweight.
Right.
No matter how efficient it was, until they implement this algorithm, it would still be, it would still be a paperweight. I would not make profit off of it.
Right. So I think you're alluding to the fact that in the ETH Ethereum is talking about POW, and then ETC, there's rumblings about switching to KEKAK 256. So there is talk about changing mining algorithms. Yes, which would, if people have invested in hardware that specifically does ETH hash now, that would be a problem. Right.
Yes, yeah, that's why I've avoided it because like I said, I can't afford to spend thousands of dollars on something that's going to become a paperweight in a month, 2 months, 3 months. Who knows?
Right. And how difficult is it to get graphics cards? High-end?
Graphics cards. I mean, if you have like a few $100s, I mean, you could get a few. About the average, I would say, for an RX 580 on eBay is anywhere from $100 to $130. Although personally, I prefer to use RX 570s, which average anywhere from $80 to $90 usually. That's about what I go for when I'm looking for them on eBay. And then RX 470s is also a popular card. Matter of fact, I just sold 10 of them today for about $63 a piece. So they are a much more affordable card to use because you can get them for about $60, $70. They mine it about 27 mega hashes a second if you know your clocks and you have a modded BIOS. Which is only a few less than what you would get out of an RX 580. So for cost to value, they're very good.
Okay. And so I'm just curious, as you get older, would you want to have like a huge center? I mean, would you kind of go into this as an adult, like, much more on a grander scale, make a company that was doing mining? Is that in the future?
Probably not. Probably what I'm going to end up doing. I do plan to stay in the, of course, technology loop of things as I go into adulthood. But I am looking more at going towards the investing side of things and using some of the earnings that I have right now as a start for beginning investing. So that's kind of my goal there, because I know most likely Bitcoin is probably going to take off a lot by the time I am old enough to have exchange accounts and blah, blah, blah. So I will, definitely do more investing then.
I see. All right. Very good. So you've given us kind of a sense of what some young people are doing with blockchain tech and kind of what their thoughts are and their skill level. You've kind of given us an intro to your mining operation. So very good. Is there anything I forgot to ask or anything you want to add before we close?
Not really. I mean, as far as mining, I mean, it can be very straightforward, but at the same time, it can be very complicated. I mean, if you've been building desktop computers for a while, you probably will be able to get into mining fairly easily. But if you're kind of a newbie, you don't know much about technology or building computers, it probably is going to be a very big challenge. And definitely don't go into it with the mind that you are going to just be amazing and have everything perfect, because you're not. You're just not.
Okay. And so for teenagers that are listening, so Hive OS is a good tip, and then eGifter to move Ether into gift cards. And well, why don't we end with this? So how do you think we could get more teenagers, more young people to be aware of
I think
technology, not just mining, but Ethereum Classic and blockchain technology in general?
Oh, I think as far as teenagers, it could definitely take off. I think that would be huge with teenagers, and I think it probably will be. I know in the network, or as far as kind of in the community of cryptocurrency, I've seen a lot of negativity towards teenagers, mining and having Bitcoin in their name.
I'm not sure why. I personally would never. I discourage a teenager from getting involved, so I don't know why. I apologize.
Yeah, it's okay. I've seen a lot of stuff like that on the forums. Negativity towards teenagers and Bitcoin.
Maybe they're just jealous that you're ahead of the game.
No, but I think if regulations would go down a bit, at least in the United States. I know in Europe it is a lot less regulated. I've actually looked into getting offshore bank accounts in Europe to open exchange accounts in Europe, because they are a lot less regulated from what I've seen than the United States. The United States, it's practically impossible if you're a teenager to buy and sell cryptocurrency. Which, like I said, that is the biggest thing that stops teenagers from doing it. Because I mean, if that stops any teenager right there, practically.
Right. And so, and you learned about it. You said you watched YouTube videos. I guess I don't think we're going to see a high school class on blockchain technology anytime
soon. No, definitely not.
So is it just that teenagers just stumble upon it?
Yes, in most cases, and there has been memes, as they are called, about which is pretty much jokes about the blockchain and cryptocurrencies. There has been a lot of that, so it's kind of gotten its way around a joke, kind of, and then the people that are more tech savvy and my generation have kind of looked into it and said, okay, this is interesting. I've definitely had a lot of friends that are interested in it. One I actually just talked with a few days ago that was trying out NiceHash on his computer, and I was like, what are you doing with NiceHash? That's another topic, though.
Right. So what is NiceHash? I'm not familiar with
NiceHash, I've not really looked into it. Back whenever I began, I did look into NiceHash, and
is that the cloud?
Yeah, it's cloud mining.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, pretty much you mine and they'll pay you for what you mine, but you're not really mining Bitcoin. You're mining for them and they're paying you for mining for them, pretty much. It's not really mining Bitcoin. And I find usually that the users that use NiceHash are a bit odd.
Okay. All right. Yes, I think there was, again, I don't know the details of the recent 51% attack, but I think
yes,
it was talk that they were using NiceHash.
I've not heard that. It definitely was a private pool, from what I know. But I don't know details about NiceHash.
I know. So whether or not they were using it, I think the concern is that services like NiceHash make it very easy for somebody that wants to spend a lot of money to just get this massive mining power.
Yes, I would say that cloud mining services probably could do that if they wanted to redirect people's mining, redirect computers to their own address and do, like you're saying, do an attack. I do think that'd be possible for them to do, and I do think that may be a concern now that you say that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So yes. So thanks for enlightening us about what the younger people are doing with Ethereum Classic and related technologies. And yeah. So just Cole, I just wish you the best of luck. And if anybody is a curmudgeon, don't let anybody discourage you. Any teenagers, if anybody complains, I apologize personally for them doing that. Us old people, sometimes we get jealous or have other reasons why we were mean. But no, I encourage you to keep learning about this technology and spreading the word.
Yes, thank you. I try and spread the word, and most people are supportive. Most adults are very supportive of it and very impressed with my ability to talk about it and mine and whatnot. But thank you.
All right. So until maybe we'll have you again on a future show. But
that would be amazing.
Until another time, I'll just sign off now. So
okay. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye.